Yeah, well, it's hilarious too because they're so like desperate to make allies with all these bad actors on the right. You know,
But
people like
won't talk to
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Sam. I mean,
Right, but
Sam and
Sam's
I
a
have
low rent
Sam said
grifter.
privately, Sam said publicly, like
Yep, many
we would
times.
love to have a conversation. I
Yep.
think that it would be productive. I mean, again, if they're willing, I'm not going to go out of my way. But my
Well,
point is just like have a conversation with somebody who has an equivalent kind of viewership that is on supposedly your side, who is saying that we don't agree with how you're doing things, as opposed to
yeah.
Charlie Kirk or Tucker or whoever they've been talking to.
The vanguard will be there, sir.
You brought up how, you know, the left, oh, we've got, you know, people, they're drawing, you know, alliances wherever they can get them. Obviously, Andrew Cuomo's playing for his chips, Bernie Sanders, AOC. You know, Gavin and I, we wanted to get your thoughts about this new hot take that's emerged on the left. You know, we're always talking about it. We're like, man, the left, we need to win more voters, right? Zoran has this strategy where he's going to go after people who, you know, they're not really, you know, into voting. Maybe they're disenfranchised. Maybe they don't believe in the system. You know, Bernie Sanders wants to go after Democrats who don't feel like the party is, you know, actively, you know, engaging with them enough. This guy wants to go after the people who fucking hate us. And I want to know if you think this is a good idea or not.
Oh boy, let's do it.
Literally starve people for 2-3 months at a time. And you're going to declare that you're going to steal their land, and you're going to declare that you're going to ethnically cleanse them, and you're proudly doing a genocide, and you're proudly supporting a genocide. Okay, Tucker Carlson, call me. Candace Owens, call me. Marjorie Taylor Greene, call me. Okay, right wing and left wing, let's get together and stop this. Even if you don't care about the Palestinians. Why? Are we going to let them take another $300 billion from the American people for greater Israel? No, I'll work with any right-wing populist. I'll work with any left-wing populist. I'll work with anyone to stop this. What would we have done? I would hope to God that if I was around in the 1930s and 1940s, that I would have said, I'll work with any right-wing populist and any left-wing populist and anyone.
I would have just joined the Nazis. If I was around in 1930s, I'll tell you what I would have done. I would have just joined the Nazis. What's your reaction to that?
Gosh. Okay, I mean, I guess the historical part that is frustrating is that the Nazis were a part of a coalition that killed and targeted the communists in Germany. So that would kind of be more of our historical placement. Not saying I'm a communist, but like within the domestic context, we're further to the left than the majority of the Democratic Party. So this is not the coalition that Nazis would be building, right? And then I want to zoom out even further to just like the overall placement of the I'll say Cenk has been, you know, somebody who's advocated for Palestinians, and that's great, right? Like I think he's been a good voice on this particular issue recently based on what I've seen. So I don't think I have a ton of gripes on his. I think he's emphasized the two-state solution, which is not ever going to happen. It's one state with just Israelis or one democratic state from the river to the sea. Those are the two options that are on the table. But other than that, Cenk has been an advocate for the Palestinians, and I think that's a good thing broadly. But the idea that we only have the option of working with Marjorie Taylor Greene or Tucker Carlson, both of whom are virulent anti-Semites and also Islamophobes, I think that there's like a tweet from Marjorie Taylor Greene from just a few years ago saying that either Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib should be deported because they decided to support the Palestinians in Gaza who were experiencing violence at the time. When you see something like that, you have to question the sincerity or the reasoning and the motivation behind that person's advocacy on a particular issue, right? And that motivation matters because outside of like a surface level debate that you're going to have on a media platform, coalition building requires sacrifice and shared interests and working together on behalf of broad goals that include the liberation of all marginalized people and making people's lives better through taxing the rich and confiscatory taxation and creating broad-based social programs. So it seems to me that his evaluation of the left is based on this reflexive anger that many people on the internet are expressing skepticism about his desire to have conversations with some of the most virulent racists and anti-Semites and Islamophobes in the country, and then saying that that's a failure of strategy. I cannot understand the position that he takes where Cenk lost his primary race handily in the race that he ran.
Less than 5%.
And we were all raising our eyebrows about it at the time. But if that happened to me, it might humble me a little bit, like from saying what's going to win elections and what isn't. But not him. So I guess, that's it. To me, it just seems like he's bummed out that his new kind of media strategy isn't working, and he's conflating that with what leftist activism is. But they also, what's so weird is that they also have a dislike of activists. They've talked about this openly, about how leftist activists are hysterical,
holding the party hostage,
or going too far, right? But he's also claiming that his version of activism, which isn't connected to like unions, God forbid, social organizations, institutions that have done this kind of work before, strategy on a state level or federal level or whatever, local level.
Real activism.
Oh God. That stuff to me just is like a scam. I don't know what else to say.
It is 100% a scam.
People should not be giving their money to that kind of thing. And how are we getting super PAC? How are we advocating giving money to super PACs when we're talking about getting money out of politics? These are the kinds of things where like what Zoran Mamdani is doing should be the model if this is your sincere belief. So
Cenk himself said he would take super PAC money when he had his run for president too, which is crazy. It's like, why would I trust you with this mission then?
So the point is that then you see it right there. When I became a fan of the show, I had thought that would be a principle that Cenk would have, but clearly he doesn't. And then when you reveal those lack of principles, what do you know? People leave your audience, and then everyone's to blame but yourself. So the self-serving conflation of TYT's business strategy with leftist activism or effective leftist activism is so egotistical that it's almost difficult for me to fully articulate.
Yeah, well, it's hilarious too, because they're so like desperate to make allies with all these bad actors on the right. People
but won't talk to Sam. Sam and Sam said privately, Sam said publicly.
Yep, many times.
Love to have a conversation. I think that it would be productive. Again, if they're willing, I'm not going to go out of my way. But my point is just like, have a conversation with somebody who has an equivalent kind of viewership that is on supposedly your side, who is saying that we don't agree with how you're doing things, as opposed to Charlie Kirk or Tucker or whoever they've been talking to.
Yeah, and also like I just want to make clear, obviously Marjorie Taylor Greene is a terrible person and a bad faith actor. Same with all these ghouls. That being said, if a Democratic lawmaker, like Bernie Sanders, if he got together with, I don't know, like Rand Paul or Thomas Massey or even Marjorie Taylor Greene to actually like sponsor a bill to end the genocide, obviously we wouldn't come out here and shame him for working with that Republican. Like that has happened in the past. I think Ro Khanna did a bill with, Rand Paul about the, Yemen situation a while ago. Like this has happened before. It's not like I'm against it. But Cenk wants to act like he's in power, like he's a senator. It's like, no, dude, you're just trying to expand your audience. You just want right-wing clicks. You just want these people's audience. That's what's going on. You're not some fucking diplomat. You have no say in the situation. So don't act like you getting on the phone with Tucker Carlson is going to do a goddamn thing other than potentially, expand your audience and get you more clicks on your shitty show, which you failed to pivot into a right-wing show. But I just wanted to put that out there. To be clear, I do support a bipartisan effort to stop this war if it were to emerge. And also, I did want to ask you, Emma, because obviously Cenk, he had on Marjorie Taylor Greene on the Young Turks for an incredibly embarrassing softball interview. They were like, flirting at the end, laughing together. It was totally cringe. But I am interested, because obviously, you and Sam also have occasionally done debates with people and had on people from the right and pretty much all the time destroy them when that happens. How would you conduct an interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene, specifically if she did just put out a statement about like how we should not go to war with Iran, kind of virtue signaling, saying the things you would theoretically want her to say, because that was the auspice under which she came under the Young Turks. We both agree, let's stop this war. So how would you handle that? If would you want to do that? Like if you had the opportunity, would you platform Marjorie Taylor Greene? And if you did, how would you handle it? Because I don't think Cenk did it the right way at all.
Right. I mean, I think that's a great question. Like, I think if we had that offer, we probably would, but we would go into it saying, let's be incredibly adversarial. But that doesn't happen because that's an understanding that I think Republican politicians have. Most Democratic politicians don't want to come on our show either for that reason, right? I mean, I think not that we seek it out. To be honest, if we have a politician on our show, usually it's because they pitched it to us because I don't want to speak for Sam, but he doesn't necessarily think those interviews are that interesting sometimes because politicians have agendas and our role is to educate the audience. And so that's why having authors or journalists on is more of our speed. But if we're going to be speaking to a right winger, which we occasionally do, but it's usually us going to Tim Pool or Sam going to PBD. Sam said this to me very early on in working with him, and it's kind of changed my perspective, is you got to go in there, and the only way you be effective is you don't worry about being invited back. And because they gish gallop, because also the opportunities for voices that are on the left that aren't captured by big money are so few and far between, it's really important that you go in there with an aggressive mindset of what you're trying to get across. And you're not capitulating and ceding to their framing. You're basically challenging their ideas because their audience doesn't hear it. Their audience never hears this kind of thing. So if you have an opportunity to speak to a right-winger with a platform, it is incumbent upon you to challenge their ideas and to be aggressive in your challenging of those ideas. I'm repeating myself, but you get what I'm saying, because these opportunities are so few and far between with leftists going on those programs. It's a different tactic than I take, say, when I go on MSNBC, like I did 2 days ago, where I know a lot of liberals are listening. And I did this when I went on Pod Save America too.
Great appearance, by the way. That was great.
Oh, thank you. Like I was emphasizing in that interview, right? The fact that I liked Elizabeth Warren in the past. Not that I ever voted for her or that I thought that she would be in any way a better president than Bernie Sanders. But when I have a more nuanced perspective on that, or I say, oh, I encourage my audience to vote Democrat. That's one thing that they really, really care about. You build just a level of trust with that audience that is mostly just afraid of Trump, right? You have to go into that with that mindset of like, they don't want Trump to win. They don't want Republicans to win. Neither do I. So I'm going to build that common ground and then try to introduce them to more progressive ideas, talk about the genocide in Gaza and how important it is, etc. So that's like, it's a different strategy based on different audiences. With a right-wing audience, you have to introduce them to new left-wing ideas, and you have to cut above the noise, which is also heavily financed on the right. And that means that you don't have to worry about access. You can't worry about getting invited back. I think Kyle Kalinske has talked about how he's changed his approach too, and based on new information, because he was more doing what I was doing or what I'm advocating for with liberals when he was going on Joe Rogan's podcast. And Rogan, like back when Kyle was doing that, was not as extreme as he is now. So no, I mean, I think Michael Brooks would talk about that too, where he thought he was more into that kind of idea of speaking to them where they are. But now Rogan's in a different place. So my point is just like, with someone that far right, with someone that disgusting. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene is as racist as it gets. She is a Nazi, like straight up in our political context. Just because she's isolationist based on likely anti-Semitic views doesn't mean that that's somebody who we should bring into our coalition of media voices on the internet, which, to go back to your point, I forget if it was Zach or Gavin that said it, but like, that is so different than if you're in power and you have hard power and you need votes to get legislation across. Platforming is not working with somebody in Congress. Although if you have delusions of grandeur, that might be something that you think.
Yeah, well, Jinx certainly has no shortage of delusions of grandeur. I think, Emma, it's time for us to offer you our condolences, I believe. I don't know, maybe your audition tape got lost in the mail. I don't know if maybe your agent was really busy. I know you're
my
busy.
Agent.
You probably get calls all the time. Yeah, I'm sure there's a Jerry Maguire back there somewhere working for you.
Are you kidding me?
But we were shocked. We were stunned that you weren't invited to be a member of this panel of left-wing voices to kind of rival The View. This new show, Her Take, over on the Valuetainment network. It's a bold new talk show that brings together outspoken and dynamic women, sounds like you, to unpack the most important stories shaping our world with a more contemporary and balanced perspective than legacy daytime panels. Jillian Michaels, Ana Kasparian, some lady Amy Dangerfield, Lindy Lee, the most recent Why I Left the Lefter. Some of the topics that they've covered so far, Emma, would be how Gavin Newsom has destroyed the entirety of California. How trans people are really weird and how there's way too many letters in LGBTQIA, and what even is a two-spirit anyway? Why are they just making up things now? Is that a furry? We've heard a lot about, how we've got to deport everyone. Well, maybe we don't have to deport everyone. Like, I'm pretty liberal, I'm just curious, had you come across Her Take before? And do you have any thoughts to share on, Ana Kasparian's new direction as TYT kind of circles the drain? It doesn't seem like they're going to be in business for much longer.
Really? I mean, well, I wouldn't be. I guess that's not shocking to me. I haven't watched Her Take. I saw the promo and I see the cast of characters. I don't know who Amy Dangerfield is, although I laughed because I heard it before and it sounds like Rodney Dangerfield, which whatever. But
I thought that every single time I've had to say her name.
I wonder if they're related. It would be interesting. Lindy Lee is such a lunatic that it's hilarious.
So annoying.
Like, I'm sorry, but you're gonna, well, here. Anna and I had previously talked about I'm sure she would frame it as like, I wanted to work with her. And like, that was definitely something that I was interested in.
Anna wanted to work with Lindy?
Or with me together before this happened, you know? And so,
interesting.
This isn't jealousy. I'm just putting that out there, like, because of if whatever. I mean, if there's criticisms of me commenting on this, I'm just saying, like, we had talked about working together previously, and she had kind of decided to go in a different direction last time I'd heard from her.
A right-wing direction, working for Valuetainment.
I didn't know what that direction was, and here we are some time later, and there you go. It's just like this simulated thing of that these are different perspectives, as if they're not like the exact same flavor of the same perspective is shocking to me. And I can't even believe that you could go into some sort of talk show arrangement with someone like Lindy Lee, or platforming her, who was in October dancing along or posing alongside Biden and Kamala Harris, being so enthusiastic, and now she's supporting the mass deportation under the Trump administration. Like, how do you not understand that this is exactly what TYT used to criticize back in the aughts about the influence of money in our media, and how there's these financial incentives to have certain opinions? Like, that's exactly what Lindy Lee represents in such an acute sense.
Yeah, just look at how cheap and shitty this is. Emma, you have had a far more, successful media career than we've ever had, so you would probably never have to tolerate it. But look at this shit. Just look at how fucking horrible and shitty this is.
Performative politics. You lead me right into another potential frontrunner, although I hear he's polling at like 5% possibly for 2028. Gavin Newsom.
Oh, we
Lord.
can't.
Newsom.
We can't.
Newsom. But this guy has tried. He's taken notes. He's tried to be somewhat critical of his own party. He's tried to reach out to the other side. He's tried to be antithetical to, everything exists in our silo.
And this is actually, a clip. I mean, they're not totally wrong about Gavin Newsom here.
100%.
Right before they were talking shit on Burning and AOC and how they flew a private jet or whatever and how that makes them fake socialists. So it's completely fucking embarrassing, this whole segment. But
isn't this exactly the same media strategy that TYT is engaging in? I would not be shocked. I don't have any information on this. I'm just putting that out there, but as a hypothesis that they're talking to the same consultants.
100%, because there's actually a very similar show. It's some fucking talent agency put it together. They say who sponsors it when you watch it, but it's Russell Brand, Jillian Michaels, Dave Rubin, and some other lady that I'd never heard of. And it's basically the same shit. They call it Actual Friends, but it's a cheap, shitty show that they're trying to put together because they've had a focus group that tells them that kind of content tests well, and then it bombs because there's no authentic audience. You know what I mean?
Right.
But Gavin and I were joking. It literally looks like it was a TV or like a web show from 2005.
It looks like Between Two Ferns, the Zach Galifianakis show. That's a parody of those things. But yeah.
This is about it led to smash and grab crimes. It led to open air drug markets. And so voters by 2024 had enough, and they voted overwhelmingly to pass something known as Prop 36 to reverse some of the policies that were implemented as a result of Prop 47. Now, here's the problem, though. No one knows about this. No one talks about this, but I'm here to tell you, Gavin Newsom, in an effort to save California money, preemptively shut down 4 state prisons. There is no room to put any of these inmates in. Right now, state prisons are transferring criminals to county jails that are already overflowing. They're overcrowded. County jails have no choice but to just release inmates regardless of how much time they've served. So even if it's a serious crime, even if they've been sentenced to decades behind bars, they're being released after serving 2.
People are getting decades behind bars or just being set free, Emma. Did you know that if you go in Los Angeles, you can commit murder, but they're just going to set you free because they don't have anywhere to put you because there's so many crimes and so many criminals.
This was a prison overcrowding in California. I remember hearing about this when I was a teenager because of tabloids. Like, it's why Lindsay Lohan wouldn't go to prison for her DUI, or same like Khloe Kardashian. California prison overcrowding is a long story thing. I don't know the specifics about what she's talking about. But
she's talking about how because of budget constraints, right? As they've ratcheted up the number of people that they're arresting, rent prices are out of control in Los Angeles. There's a lot of unhoused people, right? He keeps kind of working in both directions, right? He'll do something to get all of the homeless people off the street, but then when they put all of those homeless people in county jails, there's overcrowding in the county jails. So then you have people who did commit violent offenses, who are, oh shit, we don't have room in that jail. We have to remove people who just committed a petty offense, let that guy out so that we can have somebody who did battery against his wife behind bars. It makes sense in that capacity, but when you portray it as they're letting all of these criminals out again, it's like dudes that had vagrancy charges, dudes that got drunk in public, petty criminals, basically. But she frames it as people with decade sentences, which is not true.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. I mean, I think it's unfortunate because crime we had a spike in crime in 2021, 2022. Since 2023, crime has been on the decline. I mean, even here in New York City, subway crime has been on the decline. Also, as a result of just basically, I think, I will say subway ridership is up, but crime has not increased, is what I meant to say, in this year so far, based on the data that we have, even with congestion pricing, which has increased subway ridership and means that more revenue is going to the MTA. But it's fascinating, I guess, to see this focus on crime, this focus on incarceration, how not enough people are being incarcerated. I mean, that must be the problem. We incarcerate the most people per capita of anybody in the entire world. The United States is the #1 jailer of people. And yet, in human history. And yet her perspective is that that's not enough. We need to be teaching more people more crimes. And I'm sure there's some trauma associated with that. But look, we all have our own traumas. We've all experienced certain difficulties, and it's our responsibility as people on the left to not expand that into policies that are designed to break up lives and immiserate people, and further a carceral state that has shown that it does not have the effects that it says that it's trying to engender. I remember back in the day, there was a segment back when I was, watching TYT a lot as a fan. Maybe before, I think it was before I even worked there. There was that mass killing event in Norway. I think it was Anders Breivik was his name. The name of the killer, I forget. I'm sorry if I forget the details, but the important point is that he killed a lot of people. It was a horrific attack, and he was put in a jail cell that looks a bit like a dormitory in Norway. And I remember TYT showed that video or the images of the jail cell. And even then, they were kind of making fun of Norway's carceral system because he has a TV. It looks like a dorm.
Yeah.
Right? And they were also claiming, or perhaps there was some implication that because his prison sentence was the maximum, which I think was a few decades, even that it's insane that he could get out after doing this mass killing event. And little did they know that, like, it's like a tweak in their judicial system, right? That you just have to reapply to reincarcerate this person. This guy's never going to get out. But it was like a moment where I look back on that and I go, that's just a difference in perspective that doesn't have to do, I think, really, I would imagine, with the trauma that she's experienced. It was prior to that, or I don't really remember the timeline. Either way, it showed that they had some ideological belief that incarceration or punishment is the right way to deal with people who have broken the law, who have committed crimes, and that they're not somebody who, or that it's not a show that's like committed to restorative justice or the empirical evidence that suggests that would be the best way forward for people who have committed crimes.
Yeah, it's almost like there's no actual progressive analysis on the so-called progressive show.
Yeah.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there.